a paradise created by God Himself. A blessed land where biodiversity and change are the only constants. And where, even in the smallest corner, a new way of life prevails. Here, in one of the most majestic ecosystems on the planet, each species plays a key role in a delicate balance between life and death. This is wild Iberia, a paradise for wildlife where nature reveals itself in its purest and most untamed state. Flocks of griffon vultures land in their dozens to devour fresh carrion. Deep in the forest, the red deer, a hardened herbivore, satiates its appetite on the freshest grasses. Meanwhile, the chamois stands amidst the most imposing Rocky Mountains. In this wild realm, each species enjoys an unprecedented mix of biomes. In what appears to be one of the Creator's greatest works of art, the European rabbit runs through the meadow like a free soul, enjoying the spring weather. The glorious wild boar enjoys a pleasant swim in the refreshing streams. And the imperial eagle contemplates the majesty of this wildlife paradise from above. In a place where resources are abundant, and the climate, rather than a challenge, is often the best ally. All animal species live in complete harmony. Oh well, almost all of them. Among the thick grass, a skillful predator hides without giving the slightest sign of its presence, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. The red fox, a voracious hunter, will attempt to take the life of any rodent it encounters with its insatiable bite, instilling fear in anyone unfortunate enough to be below it in the food chain. In the waters surrounding this land besieged by the seas, one of the planet's most vicious predators emerges from the depths to satisfy its carnivorous appetite. When the great white shark emerges from the waters, all hope for survival vanishes. And all that remains is to surrender to the suffocating death represented in its jaws. As the waters turn red with blood, the Iberian bear, a hungry opportunist, will not hesitate to terrorize small mammals, birds, fish, and even large deer when their survival is threatened. And these prey represent a juicy food source. At the hands of these imposing predators, every corner of this blessed wild kingdom becomes a battlefield, where an endless struggle between life and death is waged, and in which each species manages to prevail, no matter the cost. Emerging as an inexorable border between the treacherous currents of the Atlantic and the warm waters of the Mediterranean, the Iberian Peninsula covers an area of almost 600,000 square kilometers, encompassing the territories of Spain and Portugal, bordered by France to the north and Africa to the south. Iberia represents a bridge between both continents, a place where two worlds collide, giving rise to countless biomes and ecosystems unique on the planet. To the east, an endless coastline is lapped by Mediterranean waters, offering stunning landscapes and a horizon that welcomes millions of migratory birds with open arms each year. Deep within the peninsula, An imposing plateau more than 600 meters above sea level emerges like a world apart, with the plateau stretching as far as the eye can see. In the surroundings of this colossal elevation, mountainous landscapes emerge from the depths of the earth that defy all natural logic. The Pyrenees, the Cantabrian mountain range, and the Leon Mountains are just a few of these sleeping giants that seem to touch the sky. Given such a vast range of reliefs, the mix of biomes is simply breathtaking, with snow-capped peaks and icy alpine zones, plains stretching to the horizon, warm coasts of fine sand, arid volcanic landscapes, and dense Mediterranean forests. Precisely, the latter are home to one of the most feared predators of this entire untamed animal empire. With its characteristic grayish fur and pointed ears ending in a black brush, the Iberian lynx moves like a ghost among the dense vegetation of Iberia's forests. Although its size of no more than 13 kilograms does not inspire much fear, this wild feline is one of the most ruthless predators hidden in this living ecosystem. With a robust and muscular body and a set of very sharp retractable claws, this feline is far from being a domestic cat. The lynx's athletic build allows it to make astonishing leaps of more than 5 meters in length, making it almost impossible for small prey to escape becoming part of its diet. Living in a paradise where biodiversity is evident in every corner, this feline has no trouble finding prey. Although quite capable of hunting ungulates, partridges, and rodents, the lynx's preferred prey, accounting for up to 90% of its diet, is rabbits. This strict carnivore is a specialist in hunting these small mammals weighing about 2 kilograms of juicy meat. Relying on its highly sophisticated sense of sight, this small mammal killer can detect its prey up to hundreds of meters away. Even if it can't spot the one about to become part of its menu, it's likely to hear it, as the lynx also has enviable hearing, allowing it to perceive even the slightest squeak from afar. Slowly approaching its prey, the Iberian lynx uses its camouflaged fur to disappear into the dense vegetation. And thanks to its padded feet, it can walk without betraying its cruel intentions to the unsuspecting rabbit. Since revealing your position will cause the rabbit to take off at full speed, the element of surprise is essential to successfully carrying that juicy prey to your mouth. Being close enough, with the lynx almost able to taste the unfortunate mammal, the feline launches its ferocious attack. Leaping nearly 5 meters with his sharp claws unsheathed, the hunter lands directly on top of the tiny rabbit, which, in vain, tries to free itself from the blades that its attacker uses as claws. Given such physical superiority on the part of the lynx, what cannot even be considered a fight lasts no more than a few seconds, and ends with the feline delivering a fatal bite to the herbivore's neck. While for the rabbit this was a cold-blooded murder, for the lynx it was the beginning of a very substantial meal. While it has been successful this time, the hectic wildlife of this ecosystem is not always so generous to this feline. On many occasions, rabbits are more skillful and manage to escape the fearsome bite of one of the apex predators of this animal kingdom, leaving the carnivore with an empty stomach. When this happens, the lynx, far from giving up and surrendering to austerity, in a demonstration of its survival instinct, is capable of traveling great distances until it finds a good source of food. Although the territory of one of these hunters usually covers around 10 square kilometers, when a shortage of prey hits their domain, the feline will not hesitate to march towards new horizons. since they are excellent climbers and even very good swimmers. There is no obstacle that can stand in the way of this dangerous wild cat to better living conditions. One of the few impediments to continuing their journey may be precisely another Iberian lynx. Being extremely territorial, these felines will not be very hospitable to the incursion of a stranger into their domain, so they will immediately go up to the intruder and try to make him leave the way he came. Emitting loud warning growls, the territorial feline signals to the stranger that he is not welcome, attempting to resolve this dispute amicably. However, when what could be a resource-rich territory is contested, the invader will not retreat without a fight. Here, a fierce head-to-head fight will decide who wins the disputed land. By butting their heads against each other, each feline will try to inflict maximum damage on its opponent, forcing a forced surrender. While these altercations may appear bloody, almost never does one of the parties end up with fatal injuries. In addition to preserving important feeding grounds, these duels to the death are often motivated by the defense of breeding areas. When a territorial male knows that his defenseless cubs live in his domain, he will do everything possible to prevent the invader from emerging victorious, for he knows full well the fate that such a catastrophic scenario would bring to his offspring. Likewise, during mating season, hostilities between these felines are practically inevitable. With a stunning female in play, the contenders are quick to crowd the boundaries of the dominant lynx, who, by marking his territory and through physical displays, will try to keep other males away from his territory, hoping to be the lucky one who manages to spread his lineage. With the ferocious Iberian lynx deep in its mating season, many wild species can take a break, at least for a while, from falling into the sights of this relentless predator. One of these is a gigantic reddish-furred deer weighing over 100 kilograms. Grazing in the midst of a meadow teeming with life, the red deer enjoys all the abundance that the Iberian ecosystem has in store for a majestic herbivore of its size. With imposing antlers measuring over a meter in length on males, this creature is one of those species that stands out, even in an ecosystem as biodiverse as wild Iberia. Living in large single-sex herds, red deer range over long distances across endless grasslands in search of herbs, grasses, shoots, sedges, and basically anything even slightly edible. Despite living in one of the most bountiful wild paradises on the planet, when it comes to food, these herbivores are unpretentious, adapting to eat whatever the creator throws their way. Although they can be active during the day, large herds of these deer usually emerge when twilight takes over the sky, or even in complete darkness, when the moon is the only companion on their walks through the prairie. These nocturnal habits, in addition to protecting them from the hottest hours, keep them off the radar of those predators who would literally kill for a juicy piece of these horned wolves' flesh. Living in herds is another precaution red deer take to avoid becoming part of a voracious predator's diet. While females tend to live in large herds with their young, males form bachelor groups, where their imposing antlers dazzle from the horizon. Communication is of utmost importance to this extremely gregarious species, as it helps them maintain relative peace within the group and alert them to any threats they see in the vicinity. Through bellows, grunts, body language, and scent marking, these social herbivores send clear messages to their peers. Although a bleat can sometimes signal a collective escape, occasionally, a deer that has detected imminent danger gives no warning to its herd mates, and its dash must be interpreted as a signal. In these cases, it is best to run and not try to find out, as such a rapid retreat could mean that a ferocious pack of Iberian wolves is lurking, a natural enemy against which even a large herd of red deer would be unable to defend themselves. In addition to these infallible dogs, Iberian lynxes and brown bears will not spare any unsuspecting deer that wanders through their territory. Although the food chain has placed these fervent herbivores at its lowest point, when their lives are at stake, no deer will be easy prey. Added to this is their collective defense by living in a herd, as well as their swift retreat at full speed. Especially when a male is cornered by a predator, he will not hesitate to use his razor-sharp antlers as a blade to counterattack. In these twists and turns of the chase, wolves, lynxes, and even bears can be seriously injured. Just as their colossal antlers serve perfectly to command a bit of respect from predators, when these ungulates' favorite season of the year arrives, their antlers will be the tool that allows them to satisfy that desperate desire for copulation. When the air of the prairies inhabited by herds of male deer is filled with pheromones, all that camaraderie shown to defend themselves from predators is left behind, and each individual goes in search of a fertile female with whom to procreate. Of course, with dozens of large testosterone-fueled red deer stags concentrated in small areas with few does in season, it's a recipe for disaster. No sane buck will give up his right to mate with a doe without a fight, and this is when his large antlers come into play again. However, before these fights, the stags must form their harem, for which they will emit loud bellows that can be heard for miles. These powerful vocalizations, in addition to announcing their presence to fertile females, signal to other males that they are not at all welcome. Exuberant strutting rituals, walking upright, and territorial marking with urine and visual signals in trees are also strategies used to attract females eager to breed. As the harem takes shape, with up to dozens of females responding to the call of a formidable male, it won't be long before the contenders appear in the arena to challenge his dominance. Before the physical altercation, the males will exchange bellows and stand erect in an attempt to appear larger, trying to intimidate their opponent. Staking out their territory to reinforce their olfactory presence is another behavior that frequently precedes bloody duels. With neither red deer willing to give up their right to copulation, the fight begins with subtle antler rubbing to assess the opponent. These rubbings, in just seconds, turn into powerful charges that seek to knock the opponent down. After several minutes of merciless blows, one of the contenders, due to injuries and fatigue, decides to surrender and submit to the brand new victorious deer. With his competition at least temporarily out of the way, the burly buck will remain alert for the arrival of another potential adversary, who might challenge his ownership of his harem. During this time, due to starvation, this formidable stag can lose up to a fifth of his body weight. All this for the sole and pure purpose of mating with countless does. Although fatal injuries do not usually result in battles for control of harems, occasionally some males end up practically in agony as a result of an exhaustive breeding season, as well as getting in the way of a much larger male and his females. These victims of antler duels are often more than acceptable prey for ferocious bears and packs of wolves. But perhaps an even worse fate is being torn apart by hungry flocks of griffon vultures. Soaring through the skies like a premonition of death, The griffon vulture is a faithful scavenger that torments thousands of wild species, reminding them that, sooner or later, they will end up becoming part of its carnivorous diet. With an imposing wingspan of almost 3 meters and weighing up to 11 kilograms, this bird of prey inspires fear with its enormous size. Its sandy brown plumage gives it a tawny appearance, from which it derives its name. While like all vultures, its head and neck are featherless. At the base of the neck, they sport a beautiful ruff of woolly white feathers. The combination of a large hooked beak and non-gripping talons speaks to the feeding habits of these ferocious scavengers. Since unlike hunting birds, their talons are not designed for killing, but rather for manipulating carcass remains. With each vulture devouring up to 10% of its body weight per day, the flock, with no time to waste, takes to the skies to travel long distances in search of victims of the busy Iberian wildlife. On a typical day, each bird can travel up to 300 kilometers in search of food. Using an unparalleled sense of sight, one of these scavengers is capable of spotting a carcass up to kilometers away. Upon spotting the substantial carcass of a goat, a wild boar, or perhaps even a red deer, the bird swoops down from the heights, circling, a clear signal to its flock mates to come forward for the feast. Within minutes of the first vulture landing, dozens of scavengers gather around the prey, and with their large beaks, they begin this feast where nothing is wasted. While anarchy may seem to reign at these feasts, the truth is that a very complex hierarchy is established by means of pecking, in which the dominant specimens, usually larger, are served first, while the submissive and tiny scavengers must settle for the leftovers. Although these scenes of countless vultures surrounding carcasses and devouring every last scrap of flesh in just minutes may seem like acts of the utmost cruelty, and have given these birds a very bad reputation, the truth is that the delicate Iberian ecosystem owes much to the scavenging habits of these voracious carnivores. By literally disappearing rotting carcasses in mere seconds, griffon vultures prevent the spread of harmful pathogens into the environment. In this way, what could be breeding grounds for countless diseases soon end up in the birds' highly resistant stomachs. Thanks to their extremely acidic digestive system, these gluttons can consume rotting meat without even flinching, while other scavengers might even die after ingesting contaminated carcasses. For the vultures, this has been a feast fit for royalty. Having left nothing but the memory of the corpse in its final resting place, with no further reason to remain, the flock disperses once again into the skies. Now gorged on food, the vultures spread their large wings and allow themselves to be carried effortlessly by the wind for long distances. Utilizing the strong air currents, these skilled masters of the skies barely move their wings, occasionally propelling themselves forward or changing direction. This flight technique allows them to save enormous amounts of energy. Of course, for this style of flight, they are not accustomed to flying low, reaching as high as 6,000 meters above sea level. After a hearty meal, and with the sun setting on the horizon, the flocks gather to rest in their roosts. These are communal sites, usually rocky cliffs, where up to hundreds of individuals congregate. These gathering places provide countless benefits to these birds. Although they don't usually have natural predators, Any hungry carnivore lurking nearby will think twice before disturbing an entire colony of these voracious scavengers. Likewise, when all the summer heat has gone, and the coldest days hit their corner of the peninsula, resting in large groups helps them retain every last drop of heat, regulating their temperature. With a new day dawning on the horizon, the flocks are quick to return to the arena in search of food. No matter how voluptuous their last meal was, these insatiable carnivores will never say no to a fresh carrion. But despite having a well-known reputation as opportunists, taking advantage of the work of predators, on rare occasions these birds have no qualms about taking their own lives to their prey. Especially when it comes to sick or seriously injured large mammals, griffon vultures can give them a little push from the warm shelter of death, using their powerful beaks to attack the prey with countless blows. Similarly, young small mammals and bird chicks are easy targets for these small birds. Just as the health of the Iberian ecosystem owes much to the highly efficient vultures, which are able to wipe out carcasses in minutes, other scavengers may not be too pleased with the presence of these hungry flocks, which always outbid them in the competition for food. One such species is the robust European badger. With a striking elongated body, short legs, and a distinctive coat with black and white stripes on its head, the tsugo is one of those faithful representatives of all the biodiversity that Iberia hides in its fields and meadows. Living in small groups of up to 12 individuals, the badger is surprisingly sociable, living in harmony with its fellows in elaborate underground shelters called badger burrows. These burrows are often veritable underground complexes with long tunnels, several chambers, and even numerous exits. In some cases, the length of the den can reach an astonishing 100 meters. With such an impressive refuge at their disposal, badgers often spend the entire day resting in their cozy den, protected from both the sweltering heat that the Iberian summer can bring, as well as from the many predators who wouldn't want to let a prey weighing up to 15 kilograms of juicy meat get away. It is when darkness takes over the scene that the perfect moment arrives to go out in search of something to eat. While they may occasionally compete with vultures for nutritious carrion, the truth is that these versatile mammals, far from restricting their diet, like good omnivores, feed on whatever the Creator puts on the table. Insects, invertebrates, other mammals, reptiles, fruits, and even plants. The badger will never refuse a good meal. Despite being able to feed on literally anything that comes their way, almost 80% of this omnivore's diet is made up of the very high-protein earthworms. Given their nocturnal habits, badgers' eyesight is rather poor, so they must rely on their much more developed senses of hearing and smell to find food and, in general, navigate the area surrounding their den. Although they may coexist with other clan members in their shelter, when searching for food, they tend to go their own way. After a few hours outside rummaging through the ground and even, why not, hunting some small reptile or mammal, all the clan members reunite in their enviable den. Group coexistence is generally quite peaceful, with each of the badger's inhabitants fulfilling a role in cleaning the burrow, building new tunnels, or caring for the young. A clan often consists of no more than a dozen individuals, led by a dominant male. The group is completed by females and their young. In some clans, young males may also live together in harmony, provided they agree to live under the yoke of the dominant male, who will retain the best resources and the fertile females. Although the permanence of males after reaching sexual maturity is almost always accepted, without the need to be expelled, they decide to leave on their own, to forge their path by creating their own clan. Other, somewhat more submissive males prefer to remain within the stability of their natal clan, promising not to rebel against the dominant male. However, this subservient behavior is completely unnatural, and sooner or later, they will attempt to break away from the established regime and seize power within the clan. When these challenges arise, the dominant male will quickly attempt to quell the uprising by using his fierce bite and sharp claws to remind him why he is the alpha. Although these duels for clan dominance can be quite violent, the greatest threats to the badger's relatively peaceful lives remain the numerous predators that inhabit the surroundings of their comfortable burrow. Iberian wolves, golden eagles, and red foxes can represent formidable opponents for these black and white mammals. Of course, with such a complex network of tunnels at their disposal, the moment they spot a predator intent on making them part of its diet, badgers will not hesitate to retreat underground to the safety of their fortress. Thanks to their numerous entrances and complex network of tunnels, even predators who dare to invade their home almost always end up leaving with an empty stomach. Although a quick retreat to its burrow is always the safest option, sometimes this isn't available, leaving no alternative but to engage in life or death combat. Here, its muscular body, as well as its surprisingly thick skin, becomes a real advantage in resisting bites and scratches. By raising its thick fur and making loud vocalizations in the form of grunts and snorts, the badger will try to discourage its aggressor from messing with such a formidable opponent. When the predator doesn't budge, this skilled survivor pulls off an unexpected trick by releasing a strong, musky odor from its anal glands. This unpleasant substance often scares off the carnivore, who will think twice before attempting to hunt prey the size of a European badger again. One such predator that may be scared off by the badger's peculiar deterrent technique is, in fact, a tiny yet ferocious red fox. Although the figure of a reddish-furred canine weighing no more than 7 kilograms and 60 centimeters tall might not seem to inspire much fear, this cunning fox becomes the executioner of an almost unlimited number of rodents and small mammals that inhabit the length and breadth of wild Iberia. Able to inhabit deep coniferous forests, dense grasslands, or even desert mountainous areas, this canid is the perfect example of adaptation in a wild species. Even the rugged and ever-changing terrain of the Iberian ecosystems is no obstacle for an all-terrain canid like this acrobatic fox. In addition to using its large tail as a counterweight when walking on uneven surfaces, this small dog is also an excellent climber and can even navigate with ease in water. Being primarily crepuscular, this resourceful wild dog ensures that no mouse or squirrel will be able to pass through the dense vegetation in peace, or at least not if they don't want to be part of this hungry hunter's diet. The physical abilities of this agile reddish dog make it an expert at hunting small prey such as mice, voles, hamsters, or gerbils. With a very sensitive sense of smell, upon perceiving even the faintest scent of a small mouse, the fox will soon head towards capturing its desirable prey. Thanks to his prodigious hearing, the skilled killer also manages to detect these underground rodent colonies, which for him are a feast. Since its prey is no slouch in terms of agility, the fox knows it must be careful when approaching what it hopes will be its meal. Hidden among the dense vegetation, using its reddish fur as camouflage, it waits for the right moment to launch its unstoppable attack. Carefully observing its prey, after several minutes of stalking, it leaps up to 5 meters long and lands directly on the hapless rodent, which knows full well its days are numbered. Although its preferred tactic for bringing food to the table is to remain motionless and then leap to capture its tiny adversaries, sometimes its prey is more resistant to being devoured, launching a swift escape across the prairie. When this happens, the swift fox has no qualms about chasing down these terrified rodents in a swift run. Capable of running at over 45 kilometers per hour, the end result is always the same: the reddish canine gutting what, to it, are mere snacks. Although the majority of its diet consists of small mammals, well aware that the Iberian ecosystem will not always meet its nutritional needs, like a true survivor, the small red fox, being an omnivorous species, can feed on practically anything it encounters. Small birds, invertebrates, reptiles, juicy fruits, and even carrion all count when the only alternative is to fall into a crushing famine. After devouring a few rodents, the red fox looks for a rest after a successful day of hunting. While some individuals are content to lie down in a shady spot with abundant vegetation, others prefer a more restful rest inside a burrow. Of course, this won't look anything like a badger den. The canid's temporary shelter can be as simple as a small hole, or sometimes it even takes advantage of the work of other species by occupying their burrows. Although the red fox, during its ruthless slaughter of small mammals, may seem like an apex predator, capable of instilling fear in all species in this vibrant ecosystem, the truth is that just as this dog can provoke fear through its bite, Iberia is home to countless predators that will have no problem giving the untamed fox a taste of its own medicine. For the cruel Iberian lynx, a fox is nothing more than a small dog with delusions of grandeur, which at any moment could become part of its carnivorous diet. Aware of its obvious disadvantage in a direct fight against the feline, the red fox usually tries to avoid encounters with the more robust hunter as much as possible, so as not to put its life at risk. With the help of its prodigious hearing, the fox often performs all sorts of tricks to avoid duels that could cause serious injuries, or worse, see itself become prey in a twist of the food chain. But the threats to the survival of this ferocious canid aren't only hidden among the vegetation in the form of a voracious Iberian lynx. From high above, a large golden eagle won't hesitate to swoop down and kill what it considers a very generous prey in seconds. With these predators stalking the small fox from the skies, it can go from stalking a tiny rodent to being gutted by a gigantic bird of prey in an instant. A clear example of the ever-changing dynamics of the wild in the irreverent animal life of this vast peninsula. With the red fox being devoured by the newly arrived golden eagle, the small mammals can emerge from their burrows, at least momentarily, with a bit of peace. One of those species that is relieved by the hungry fox's early departure is the also reddish red squirrel. Weighing no more than 300 grams, the red squirrel is perhaps one of the tiniest mammal species inhabiting this ecosystem full of diverse life forms. But, leaving aside its compact dimensions, the red squirrel has earned its little corner in the middle of a habitat plagued by carnivores like the inhospitable Iberia. While its length of just 25 centimeters with its bushy tail extended does not give the slightest indication of a skilled survivor, the resilient squirrel overcomes this challenging handicap with ingenuity and surreal physical abilities. Using its razor-sharp claws, no tree can resist the climbing skills of the small Iberian squirrel. In just seconds, this agile survivor can move from the ground to disperse among the dense branches, and at high altitudes, thanks to its large tail as a counterweight, it can move easily across rough terrain. Likewise, to travel through the dense forests it inhabits without having to descend to the ground. Like a true acrobat, using its robust legs, it can jump several meters in the air, from branch to branch. Although it is not a prodigy of speed, when threatened, it can run at about 25 kilometers per hour for short distances. Aware of its small size, and the fact that there are basically endless predators dreaming of putting its tiny body in their jaws, as a survival measure, the Iberian squirrel tends to maintain a constant state of alert. The location of their eyes on the sides of their heads gives them a very wide field of vision, so they can keep a close eye on their surroundings when they are outdoors. Likewise, thanks to its highly developed hearing, it can detect even the slightest movement of any carnivore that has its sights set on it and intends to devour it. With snakes, Iberian lynxes, red foxes, martens, goshawks, and eagle owls lurking, the cautious squirrel, sensing something is wrong, will not stop to investigate and will take refuge in the safety of the heights. Since it would be almost impossible for it to survive without a good hiding place, this clever mammal often turns a small hole in a tree into its cozy home, where it can take shelter from both its many predators and the weather. After ensuring there are no predators in the vicinity of its home, the squirrel slowly descends from its tree and sets out to find some food. Hungry after having escaped being eaten, this fervent omnivore can feed on acorns, nuts, seeds, berries, mushrooms, buds, bark, insects, eggs, and even young chicks. To find any of their wide variety of food, they rely on their highly sensitive sense of smell, as well as an exhaustive search of the soil. By meticulously searching every inch of their habitat, they manage to find true delicacies hidden in nature. When the Iberian winter approaches, the red squirrel, aware of the scarcity that low temperatures often cause, in addition to satisfying its appetite, prepares itself with a good supply of food. To do this, they bury acorns, nuts, seeds, fruits, and even small insects in strategic locations. These delicious snacks will be unearthed when this bountiful ecosystem transforms into a barren forest with not even a trace of food for miles. Although this winter preparation is a very smart survival measure, the truth is that after burying up to thousands of snacks, mainly in the form of acorns and seeds, the vast majority of these will never be eaten by the planned squirrel, as they often end up forgetting about them. So too, sometimes, while a small Iberian squirrel buries a fresh nut for its winter stash from the shadows, an envious fellow species is watching everything carefully, so that, as soon as it turns around, it can take advantage of the hard work of the well-informed squirrel, stealing the fruits of its efforts. In addition to these somewhat dishonest acts, altercations can occur between these skilled survivors when a feeding area is in dispute, or in the case of males, when a female in heat is involved. Given their lack of ferocity, it's understandable that these fights don't usually cause serious injuries, nor do they even come close to the savagery displayed by species such as Iberian lynxes or red deer. Often these duels are limited to quick chases, high-pitched screeches, and subtle struggles, and end in a matter of seconds, with one of the two involved retreating to the comfort of their nest. Despite this peculiar display of hostility among conspecifics, they can also occasionally adopt a somewhat social behavior, emitting squeals in the presence of a predator to warn their fellow species of the potential threat. Added to these alarm calls, the red squirrel is one of those wild Iberian inhabitants that breaks the abysmal silence of the forest, with chirping sounds while feeding and grooming, growling in the face of danger, and loud tail whipping as a sign of excitement. These furry little creatures are among the most expressive wild species in all of Iberia's biodiversity. Even though the little red squirrel finds itself in the sights of countless predators in the forests and grasslands, luckily for it, there's no way it'll end up in the jaws of the Lord and Master of the seas that surround this land blessed by the Creator. Emerging from the deep waters of the Mediterranean, the ferocious great white shark appears like death itself, personified in a jaw of up to 300 sharp teeth. Weighing over a ton and measuring up to 6 meters in length, the great white shark is a colossal predator in the endless waters surrounding the peninsula. Capable of swimming at up to 50 kilometers per hour, there's virtually no species in the water that can escape the bite of this ferocious carnivore in an underwater chase. while the little red squirrel's sense of smell leads it to fresh acorns, providing one of the most tender scenes in all of wild Iberia. When the feared great white shark uses its nose, it usually does so to carry out one of the greatest displays of savagery on the planet. Able to detect even a drop of blood from miles away, when the shark perceives what, to it, is a lush elixir, it is not long before it sets out for what will inevitably become its prey. With an insatiable appetite, capable of devouring up to 30 kilograms of meat a day, the great white shark is an expert hunter that will not let any prey, regardless of its size, escape a painful death at the hands of its fearsome bite. The vast diet of this inveterate carnivore includes tuna, rays, seals, sea turtles, and even other sharks. When the prey is a large fish swimming near the surface, this skilled hunter opts for a stalking strategy in which, relying on his prodigious eyesight, he observes his hunting target from a distance, slowly approaching the surface, revealing nothing but its fearsome dorsal fin, a clear sign of death. The hunter gets ever closer to its prey, and by the time it realizes the ambush, it's usually too late. In a single bite, the insatiable carnivore has devoured the defenseless fish, which is almost immediately devoured and taken to the jaws of this ruthless predator. Just as fish are completely exposed to the will of this almighty carnivore, aquatic mammals are also not exempt from seeing the waters turn red in the face of a great white shark attack. When a gentle seal is swimming placidly on the surface, and this heartless shark has set its sights on it, there is practically nothing the mammal can do to escape. In this case, the strategy is to ascend at full speed from the depths directly toward the prey. With a seal completely ignorant of what is happening below, there is not the slightest obstacle for the carnivore to satisfy its insatiable desire for meat. And from one moment to the next, the colossal shark leaps to the surface with the helpless dying prey between its 6-centimeter-long teeth. Although with its impressive swimming ability and unmatched physical condition, this cruel predator seems to rise as the most feared carnivore in all the waters that flank wild Iberia. The truth is that not even these killing machines are safe from falling victim to the bite of another, even more formidable predator. While the entire Iberian marine ecosystem views the great white shark as a cruel killer that devours thousands of wild species, for the bloodthirsty pods of orcas, this shark is just another prey in their diet. Sailing through the waters in pods of up to dozens, when these carnivores are on the prowl, the most prudent thing for the great white shark is to put itself in the prey's place and escape. As a survival maneuver, when the pods of these black and white dolphins are very close, the shark may choose to remain motionless, hoping to camouflage itself in the underwater darkness. Sometimes, when he manages to anticipate the arrival of orcas, the best option is always to dive deep into the waters. Capable of descending to more than 1,000 meters below the surface, at such altitudes, he remains out of reach of his pursuers. However, these skilled hunters don't always offer even the slightest chance of escape. And the once feared predator must witness how wildlife this time positions it at a less privileged link in the food chain. Although in a hand-to-hand fight with an orca, the colossal fish has a chance of victory, when a large pod of whales looms on the horizon, it's always best to avoid what for the orca is an unnecessary confrontation, and for the orcas is just another hunt. As the great white shark dives thousands of meters into the depths, returning to dry land, but now from above, the majestic Spanish imperial eagle watches motionless from a cliff over the immensity of this living ecosystem. With an imposing wingspan of more than 2 meters and a weight of almost 5 kilograms, this captivating bird of prey stands as one of the greatest threats in the skies to the countless small mammals that inhabit valleys, grasslands, and forests. Its dark brown plumage all over its body, with shoulders splashed with white and gold feathers, give it a striking appearance, from which its name comes, and make it perhaps one of the most elegant birds across the peninsula. However, despite its captivating appearance, when it comes to capturing juicy prey, this bird of prey won't hesitate to stain its plumage with blood. With a sturdy, curved beak with sharp edges and strong, sharp talons, the imperial eagle doesn't particularly feed on berries and wild apples. The diet of the skilled hunter of the skies consists entirely of meat, with rabbits, hares, pigeons, crows, foxes, and small rodents being a constant source of food. Like all birds of prey, the imperial eagle has a highly developed sense of sight, allowing it to locate its prey up to several kilometers away. From towering heights, in what appears to be only dense vegetation, this meticulous hunter can spot colonies of rodents or small solitary rabbits, which are about to become its prey. Upon locating potential prey, the eagle descends slowly until, in a kind of explosion of energy, it dives towards its target with its wings spread wide and its fearsome talons ready to strike. With a ferocious bird of prey hurtling down from the heights, escape is virtually impossible, and the impact of landing alone is often enough to kill the prey. While managing to escape from a hunter as formidable as a Spanish imperial eagle is a feat few can live to tell, there is an even worse scenario, and that is having a pair of these winged carnivores on your tail. While the wild Iberian ecosystem is home to thousands of polygamous species, which copulate incessantly with up to dozens of partners during the breeding season, imperial eagles, believing in true love, form lifelong pairs. The courtship of these extremely loyal birds is perhaps one of the most surprising in this entire animal empire called Iberia. It all begins with the male timidly approaching and presenting a gift to the female. Typically, a rabbit or bird will be perfect for attracting the female's attention. This behavior, in addition to capturing the female's interest, demonstrates the male's ability to provide for a potential family. Little by little, the male approaches the female and intensifies the courtship display through vocalizations in the form of loud, harsh barks that can be heard from great distances. If she is receptive, she will respond to the call, and they will slowly grow closer. Once the pair has formed, they often display majestic nuptial flights, characterized by rapid ascents and descents, aerial chases, and high-speed turns and loops. When the breeding season approaches, the monogamous pair spares no effort to build the nest that will become the family home. Since they will reuse the nest for several years, the pair usually takes great care in its construction, locating the structure in a convenient location in the canopy of pine or cork trees and ensuring its stability. With the nest well prepared and after copulation, the female lays eggs, which will reveal up to 6 eggs weighing about 130 grams at the bottom of the nest. For approximately 43 days, the future chicks will be incubated by their mother, while the father will be responsible for bringing food to the female. After long days and nights watching over the safety of her eggs, the miracle of life occurs, or at least part of it. As of the half-dozen eggs, often only 3 chicks manage to hatch. With the birth of the chicks, the pair's work is not yet complete, as they must feed their young until they are old enough to fend for themselves. During this period, the parents usually bring food to their young, in the form of rodents, hares, or even snakes. While when abundance resounds in the Iberian ecosystem, all the chicks eat until they are stuffed. During days of scarcity, when there isn't enough food for everyone, the largest chick usually monopolizes everything for itself, and its siblings, after days of hunger, end up perishing without even leaving the nest. Another danger these chicks face is the presence of other birds of prey, such as the feared golden eagle, which upon seeing the pair abandon the nest in search of food, will not hesitate to attack it, claiming the lives of what to it are simply protein-rich prey. Although it is raw, this is wildlife in its purest state in untamed Iberia. Just as the young of imperial eagles can be cruelly preyed upon by the ruthless golden eagle, in the heights of the Rocky Mountains of the Pyrenees, there lives another little-known prey of these fearsome hunters of the skies. Marching across steep cliffs, the chamois demonstrates how wildlife thrives even in the most inhospitable and inaccessible places. With dense fur that changes seasonally in shades of yellowish white and blackish brown, and distinctive backward curving horns, chamois, also known as chamois, are living proof that the Creator has captured an unprecedented vastness of life forms in Iberia. Primarily diurnal, these bovids typically spend their routine roaming the rugged mountain terrain in search of food and resting amidst the silent mountains. Although living in such isolated corners of the peninsula ensures that they are among the few wild species able to roam these inaccessible biomes, it also entails significant challenges. One of these is their diet. However, as seasoned survivors, chamois adapt to seasonal food availability and are also capable of migrating to lower latitudes when austerity takes hold at higher altitudes. While in spring and summer this unpretentious herbivore enjoys devouring tender leaves and fresh shoots, when the scarcity of winter calls, it adapts its diet to lichens, mosses, bark, and any plant material it can find. While the females march with their young across these difficult terrain, the males advance with no company other than the stars during the cold nights that plague this mountainous region. The stars, and of course, any predator that has surprisingly arrived at this isolated place with intentions of making it its prey. Since it is located thousands of meters from the forest border, there are few carnivores willing to undertake this long journey to hunt down this goat. Apart from the golden eagle, which can stalk the herbivore in just a few minutes of flight in this unstable terrain, the red fox is another predator that can pose an imminent threat of death. The main contingency measure to avoid becoming part of the diet of these unfocused predators is to keep an eye on the horizon, alert for any possible threat. As soon as they sense potential danger, demonstrating that they are in their element in these uneven terrain, the chamois will break into a swift run. Thanks to their powerful legs with hard, sharp hooves, they can reach surprising speeds and leap between rocky slopes. After a quick retreat, they usually leave predators like an exhausted red fox far behind, who would rather return to the stability of the prairie, where steep cliffs do not come between them and their prey. Since climbing across rough terrain is not enough to confront such a formidable adversary as the golden eagle, when they spot this predator in the distance, chamois often opt for a passive defense, remaining motionless and waiting for their highly efficient camouflage to do the hard work. Since this bird of prey boasts a highly advanced sense of sight, this strategy sometimes fails, and the hunter attacks the prey. Here, the numerous herds of females with young engage in a diversionary tactic, with all the goats running in different directions. In these rapid escapes where chaos reigns, the predator often ends up with nothing in the confusion, without even knowing what happened. One of the chamois' most desperate measures to avoid being devoured by a relentless golden eagle occurs when this bird of prey manages to surround them on the edge of a cliff. Here, cornered and with no other alternative, the goat throws itself from imposing heights, with the slim hope of surviving. Given that its other option is to face a ruthless hunter with sharp talons and a powerful beak capable of gutting it in seconds, the idea of free-falling from the heights is not as bad as it seems. Although aside from these encounters with the feared golden eagle, their life is relatively peaceful at high altitudes. When winter arrives, both flocks of females and solitary males decide to descend from the abysmal heights to settle, at least temporarily, at the edges of the forest and on sunny slopes. While at these latitudes they are exposed to other predators, such as lynxes or the dreaded packs of Iberian wolves, it is a sacrifice they must make to escape the low temperatures that plague their previous home, as well as to gain access to the already limited winter food sources. During these months living outside the safety of rugged terrain, chamois must seek refuge in groups and remain alert to any potential danger. In wild Iberia, the list of predators more than happy to hunt a goat weighing up to 50 kilograms of fresh meat is simply endless. While bloodthirsty hunters like the golden eagle, the ferocious lynx and fearsome wolf packs pose a real challenge to the chamois, none of these ruthless carnivores come close to the savagery that this ecosystem's apex predator is capable of. When the Iberian brown bear is on the prowl, no wildlife species across the Iberian Peninsula is safe. Reaching a weight of up to 250 kilograms and a height of up to 2 meters, the Iberian brown bear stands like a colossus in the midst of this biodiverse wild paradise. With a robust head, a long and strong snout, and a muscular body, this giant is nature's ultimate representation of what an apex predator is. In addition to having a powerful bite capable of crushing bones, its powerful legs crowned with a set of sharp, retractable claws make it a living nightmare for any prey that falls into disgrace by encountering this ferocious killer. Living deep in deciduous forests and dense thickets, this enormous mammal spends its days moving through dense vegetation, searching for food. Although its impressive physical condition allows it to rule every corner of this vast ecosystem with an iron fist, fortunately for all the species that inhabit untamed Iberia, the brown bear goes from being a strict carnivore to enjoying a rich omnivorous diet. Living in such a changing ecosystem, this brown beast adapts its diet to the availability of resources. During the bountiful spring with countless grasses, shoots, leaves, roots, and bulbs growing everywhere, this mammal gorges itself on food. This primarily herbivorous diet may also include small prey such as beetles, earthworms, and some small vertebrates. During the summer, a season when Iberia overflows with abundance in every corner, this insatiable giant expands its diet to include wild fruits such as blueberries, strawberries, and sloes, as well as berries, mushrooms, and honey. Despite the abundance of fruits and vegetation overwhelming its ecosystem, should a small mammal cross its path, the ferocious bear will have no qualms about devouring it. By autumn, when the icy days of winter begin to loom on the horizon, the ferocious Iberian brown bear significantly increases its predatory behavior rather than an act of savagery and dominance, as it must rapidly gain weight for the leaner months. Deer, wild boar, hares, rodents, fish, and even birds are in imminent danger. Given its ferocious size and lack of agility compared to species like the Iberian lynx or the small red fox, the brown bear tends to stalk young or wounded prey, as they represent a fairly affordable source of meat. Raids on burrows and nests are another of the atrocious practices this insatiable predator often carries out to impose its will and calm the rumblings of its stomach. In addition to being a skilled hunter of land prey, and even capturing birds with relative ease, the ferocious Iberian bear sees an almost endless source of food in the many streams surrounding its habitat, in the form of fresh fish. Waiting patiently on the banks for the current to do the work, this prodigious fisherman, with a powerful swipe of his paw, or even by plunging his mouth directly into the water, manages to catch gigantic salmon. If a large flock of griffon vultures makes the mistake of devouring fresh carcass near the territory of a hungry Iberian brown bear, the mammal, upon quickly detecting the intoxicating scent of juicy meat with its keen sense of smell, will soon arrive. Here, giving the birds lessons in food hierarchy, it will scare them away. And if the feast is substantial enough, perhaps, just perhaps, it will leave them some leftovers. Despite being able to chase even the dreaded flocks of vultures away from a carcass, and instilling fear in countless mammals, reptiles, and birds, even the formidable Iberian brown bear can occasionally come up against an enemy of its own. When two bears cross paths in the middle of an area rich in nuts, or perhaps a prime fishing ground, neither giant will be willing to leave. With virtually all Iberian wildlife at their feet, these feared mammals have become temperamental, and despite having the entire vastness of the peninsula at their mercy, more as proof of their dominance, neither will falter in the face of a challenge to the death. In this clash of titans, both adversaries initiate hostilities by avoiding physical contact and sending out clear signals of deterrence in the form of growls and loud snorts. With both sides refusing to retreat and relinquish the disputed territory, the bears stand on their hind legs to appear larger. And in just seconds, a pitched battle ensues between two of the most feared predators in the vastness of this ecosystem. Rearing up on their hind legs and delivering powerful blows with their claws, each bear attempts to establish dominance to command respect. After several minutes of relentless scratching and wrestling, one of the contenders, exhausted, decides to retreat, surrendering its territory to the victorious male. While the defeated bear has just lost part of its domain, the good news for it is that it was relatively unharmed. Thanks to their thick skin and dense fur, these giants are able to withstand powerful blows without even leaving a scar. Perhaps the only thing more challenging for a huge Iberian brown bear than fighting another wild male is facing, precisely, a female of its own species. When brown bears find themselves in the grip of scarcity, and a young bear cub crosses their path, in one of nature's most brutal acts, the hungry male will not hesitate to devour the tiny cub. However, he didn't count on the overprotective mother nearby, who will not tolerate any predator, much less one of her own species, daring to touch her offspring, thus beginning another relentless battle that will decide the future of the tender bear cub. Unfortunately, these interspecies fights are nowhere near the greatest threats facing Iberian brown bears. The greatest predator of these majestic beasts is by far humans. As a result of activities such as illegal hunting, populations of these brown mammals are in serious danger. According to estimates, between 1988 and 2020, up to 45 Iberian brown bears died in the Cantabrian Mountains as a result of human intervention in their ecosystem. But it's not just this apex predator that is affected by changes in its habitat and the effects of human activities. Griffon vultures, birds crucial to the health of the Iberian ecosystem, are increasingly threatened by the fragmentation of their biomes. Each year, electrocution on power lines claims more lives of these scavengers, which could lead to irreversible changes throughout their habitat, given the essential ecological function they perform. For European badgers, the situation is not much different, as these resourceful mammals are increasingly affected by the rise of extensive agriculture. Given their incursion into crops, these herbivores are often savagely persecuted and hunted, wiping out entire populations. Not even the majestic Spanish imperial eagle is immune to threats resulting from human influence on its ecosystem. The illegal use of poison baits targeting other predators is wreaking serious havoc on the already small populations of this bird endemic to the Iberian Peninsula. Likewise, its breeding areas are increasingly affected by various human activities, which has reduced its birth rate to alarming levels. Despite all these challenges facing Iberian wildlife, there is still reason for optimism. as these wild species have proven capable of surviving even in the most hostile living conditions. Therefore, with our help and actions aimed at their preservation, it is possible to protect them from extinction. A clear example of this is the ferocious Iberian lynx, a species that at the beginning of the 21st century was listed as endangered due to vehicle collisions, with studies estimating fewer than 100 felines remaining in the wild. Today, thanks to collective efforts, proper habitat management, captive breeding, and control of unnatural mortality, the population of these felines is estimated to exceed 1,000 individuals, saving the species from imminent extinction. While this is a small step toward rescuing the species, it also represents a ray of hope for thousands of animals that are threatened, and a motivation to drive the necessary changes to preserve these ecosystems and their wild inhabitants. Were you impressed by the stories of ferocity, the fight for reproduction, and extreme survival of wild Iberian species? Okay, then don't leave without giving us your like to help us continue growing. If you're interested in staying up to date with our new releases, you can also subscribe and click the notification bell. Before you leave, don't forget to leave a comment in the box to tell us which wild species surprised you the most, and also share this video with your friends. Without further ado, see you next time with more wildlife stories.